The world fell in love with her pearls and her smile, with the way she tilted her head just slightly, as if she was always listening for something the rest of us couldn't hear. With those eyes, dark, wide, carrying a depth that no acting class could teach. Audrey Hepburn became cinema's most enduring symbol of elegance, and audiences assumed that elegance was simply what she was born with, a gift, an accident of nature. They were wrong. What they mistook for effortless beauty was something far more extraordinary. It was survival, transformed. Audrey Kathleen Rustin was born on May 4, 1929, in Brussels, Belgium. Her early years were already complicated. Her father, a British banker with fascist sympathies, abandoned the family when Audrey was 6 years old. That wound, of a father who simply walked away, never fully healed. But the greater wound was still coming. When war broke out across Europe, Audrey's mother moved the family to the Netherlands, believing it would be safer. It was not. In May 1940, Nazi Germany invaded and occupied the country. Audrey was 10 years old. What followed were 5 of the most brutal years any child could endure. She lived in Arnhem, a city that would later become the site of one of the most catastrophic Allied operations of the entire war, Operation Market Garden. She watched soldiers march through her streets. She saw Jewish families disappear from their homes overnight. She witnessed executions. Her own uncle was shot by the Nazis as a reprisal after acts of resistance. Her half-brother was forced into labor in Germany. She and her mother hid an Allied paratrooper in their home after the disastrous Battle of Arnhem at enormous personal risk, and she starved. The Dutch hunger winter of 1944 to 1945 is one of the most documented famines of the Second World War. When the Nazis cut off food supplies to the Western Netherlands in retaliation for a Dutch railway strike, the civilian population was reduced to eating tulip bulbs, sugar beets, and whatever scraps could be found. Over 20,000 people died. Hundreds of thousands suffered permanent damage to their health. Audrey was one of them. She survived on rations that barely kept her alive. She later described eating grass, cooking nettles, making flour from tulip bulbs. By the time liberation came in May 1945, she was 15 years old, severely malnourished, and suffering from anemia, respiratory problems, and edema, swelling caused by the lack of protein. Her growth had been stunted in ways that would affect her body for the rest of her life. She never forgot it. Years later, as a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador, she would travel to Ethiopia, Sudan, Somalia, Bangladesh, and Vietnam, to the hungriest, most forgotten corners of the world. People sometimes asked why she worked so tirelessly, why she flew to disaster zones at an age when most people rest. She answered with quiet clarity, "I know what it is to be hungry. I know what it is to be a child who needs help." The grace was never just poise, it was memory. After liberation, Audrey threw herself into dance. Ballet had been her passion since childhood, and in the desperate years of occupation, small private recitals had actually helped raise money for the Dutch resistance. Dance was the one thing the war hadn't entirely taken from her. She moved to London and trained intensively. Her teachers recognized her talent, but were frank about the limits imposed by malnutrition. Her body, they said, was not strong enough for a professional ballet career. It was a devastating blow to a girl who had already lost so much. But Audrey did not collapse. She redirected. She moved into modeling, then small theatrical roles, then a chance encounter with the French novelist Colette, who spotted Audrey during a film shoot and insisted, famously, loudly, with the authority of a legend, that this young woman must play the lead in the Broadway adaptation of her novel Gigi. The rest followed with a speed that seems almost mythological in retrospect. Broadway in 1951, a lead film role in Roman Holiday in 1953, an Academy Award for Best Actress the same year, becoming one of the very few performers in history to win an Oscar, a Tony, a Grammy, and an Emmy. But those who worked with her noticed something that went beyond talent. She arrived on set without ego, without cruelty, without the armor that many stars build around themselves. She was present. She listened. She was, on set and off, extraordinarily kind. There is a kind of person who survives great darkness and comes out of it bitter, armored, unable to trust. And there is another kind, rarer, who comes out of it with a tenderness that is almost frightening in its depth. Audrey Hepburn was the second kind. She spoke rarely and carefully about the war. She didn't perform her suffering, but those who knew her well understood that everything, the restraint, the compassion, the refusal to waste a single moment, the devotion to her sons, came from those 5 years in Arnhem. She had learned, at the age when most children are learning multiplication tables, that life is genuinely fragile, that people can vanish, that food, safety, and love are not guaranteed. That knowledge gave her a quality that no stylist or director could manufacture. She did not take things for granted, not a warm meal, not a healthy child, not a kind word. She seemed to understand, at some cellular level, what truly mattered, and she organized her entire life around it. Her personal fashion icon, Hubert de Givenchy, who dressed her for decades, once said that what made Audrey beautiful was not the clothes, not the bones, not even the eyes. He said it was the way she inhabited herself, as if she had made peace with something most people spend their whole lives running from. When you watch Audrey Hepburn on screen, in Breakfast at Tiffany's, in Sabrina, in Funny Face, you are watching a woman who has already defeated something enormous. The lightness you see is not naivety. It is the lightness of someone who has stood in real darkness and chosen deliberately and repeatedly to step toward the light. She once said, "Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible." It sounds like a motivational poster, but coming from a woman who survived a Nazi occupation, watched her family be torn apart, nearly starved to death, was told her body would never be strong enough for her dreams, it sounds like something else entirely. It sounds like testimony. Audrey Hepburn died on January 20th, 1993, in Tolochenaz, Switzerland, at the age of 63. She had spent the final years of her life not on red carpets, but in refugee camps and field hospitals, holding children that reminded her of herself. The world loved her for her pearls and her smile, but the real Audrey, the one worth knowing, was the girl in Arnhem who ate tulip bulbs and survived, and then spent the rest of her life making sure no one else ever had to feel that alone. That was her grace, and it was real.